And now on to other stories rocking the galaxy this Tuesday afternoon. Can McDonald's recover from its Mick identity crisis? The gowns sparkled and the tuxes were crispy at last night's Metropolitan Museum of Art Gala. So why is Mayor Bill de Blasio being criticized for skipping the ceremony? But first, today, President Obama nominated Joseph Dunford as the next chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Dunford's first task, coordinating the federal government's takeover of Texas with martial law. Wait, what? The latest conspiracy theory from the right-wing fringe centers on Jade Helm 15, an 8-week-long military training exercise across 7 southwestern states that begins in July. The controversy began when the Army released this map detailing the fictitious battlefield, a map that designates Texas and Utah as hostile territory. The map quickly gave way to rumors about corporate complicity and secret tunnels.
They want to hide this as a psyop in plain view for the troops, to brainwash them, the local police, and the citizens. They're having Delta Force, Navy SEALs with the Army trained to basically take over. This is over the top. Texas is listed as a hostile sector. Now, of course we are. We're here defending the Republic. This is in preparation for the financial collapse and maybe even Obama not leaving office. I mean, I'm telling you, this is so huge.
Joining members of the tinfoil hat brigade was Texas Governor Greg Abbott. He is in office right now, whose skepticism last week led him to direct the state's National Guard to, quote, monitor the exercises. And then, of course, there was Senator Ted Cruz.
My office, we've reached out to the Pentagon to inquire about this exercise. We're assured that it is a military training exercise. When the federal government has not demonstrated itself to be trustworthy in this administration, the natural consequence is that many of the citizens don't trust what it's saying.
Yesterday, the Pentagon responded, Jade Helm is a long-planned and coordinated exercise. We are not taking over anything. But then again, that's what they would say, wouldn't they? Joining us is writer for Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, Kevin Avery, senior editor of The New Republic, Jamil Smith, and Washington Bureau Chief of Mother Jones, David Corn. David,
yes.
I mean, where to begin with this story?
Well, you know, Alex, if you take the words Jade Helm 15 and rearrange the letters, it does say third term for Barack Obama, the socialist.
Yes, it does.
So there you go.
Coincidence? Coincidence, David?
I don't think so, and I'm surprised as we watch Alex Jones's radio show about this that Rand Paul, who has often been an Alex Jones guest, wasn't there for that particular segment. I wonder why, too.
Well, are you surprised, David? I mean, Alex Jones talking about the sort of planned federal takeover of the state of Texas doesn't seem that surprising, but the governor of Texas and a man who's running for president of the United States seem to be giving quarter to these conspiracy theories.
Well, last time I saw the governor of Texas was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner just
humble brag.
2 weeks ago. But no, I would say he was looking at all the stars around us, and his eyes were as big as a Texas field. And so I don't know why he was there rather than back home preventing the federal takeover of his state. People out there ought to be asking questions about that.
Jamil, Walmart had to issue a statement yesterday dismissing rumors that tunnels were being built by the U.S. military beneath closed Walmart stores in an attempt to launch a takeover of Texas.
I mean, it's really interesting at a time, especially when Texas is, implementing all kinds, or at least considering all kinds of abortion bills that are extraordinarily restrictive, and we're dealing with literally the police occupation of cities that we're worried about an Alex Jones
federal government
sparked
takeover.
Controversy about about takeover with a military exercise.
But this is the unfortunate part of a lot of this conspiracy theory making is that it trickles its way from the fringes into some parts of the conservative platform, right? I mean, we had Obamacare death panels, which started on the fringe and worked their way up to the presidential stage. FEMA concentration camps, gun confiscation, which is an ongoing.
Those are real, Alex.
Yes, exactly. I mean, and Ted Cruz is a legitimate politician and is talking about this stuff.
Well, maybe.
Right. Well, that's true.
Correct me if I'm wrong. We have Texas already, right? Don't we already have it in the country? What's the takeover? We got Texas.
We got
everybody.
it.
We collect taxes and everything.
Texas doesn't want to believe that.
What are we going to open like a Disney Texas or something? Like, I don't know what we think we're We're taking over.
We're not taking it. We have you already.
already
It's
have
basically-
Wait a second, but wait a second, guys. Texas does have oil.
That is true. That is true.
Okay,
and we
so
do.
if we're going to invade a place, it's going to have
Well, then
oil.
We're gonna
why would a
reinvade a place we
Republican
already
be
have.
scared? Why would a Republican be scared of invading a land to get more oil? Then that's what I would like to know.
Yeah, that is a very, very important point, Kevin. Dear Texas, you're already part of the United States. Okay, we're going to move on. Today, sandwich chain Panera Bread says it plans to ditch over 150 artificial ingredients from its products. That announcement came one day after the McDonald's new CEO laid out his strategy to turn around the sagging sales of a company currently ensnared in what is seriously being called a McIdentity crisis. Jamil, do you go to McDonald's?
Not anymore. Not anymore.
And when did you stop going?
I stopped going. Let's see. When I started wrestling in high school, pretty much,
you had to start
and I
caring
decided
about
that
your body.
like this is probably not in the best of my interest for my diet plan. But in all seriousness, I still go. I mean, we go. I went on a reporting trip. Well, I was just in Ferguson. Where you know, where are you gonna go? It's like they've got great Wi-Fi. I didn't order any food, but I still went.
And that's where they're at, which is it is a place of last for people who are you know. For the majority of the American public, it is becoming a place of last resort or a place of Wi-Fi. And that therein is a problem, Kevin. And I guess I wonder, can McDonald's making healthier food or a $5 sirloin burger, will that change people's perception of McDonald's and motivate them to go eat there?
I feel like if you're McDonald's, this is what you do to get people into the restaurant. Big sign out front that just says bathrooms open to the public. Boom. Hey, here we go. We got a pit stop.
That is, David. Is there something disconcerting about a restaurant that sells the cell phone a bathroom?
Well, I think there would be if they chose that strategy there. I mean, I remember very clearly the day I stopped going to McDonald's. It was when I got food poisoning there in 1981,
wow.
and I haven't eaten a burger since. Wow. I mean, they have a problem because their business model is out of step with where Americans' health, nutrition, and even recreational ideas about food are changing. But still, McDonald's is a place where very low-income families go for very cheap food, and for them, it actually can be a destination spot for their kids. But it's not good for those families when it comes from a health perspective.
And they're increasingly waking up to that.
And it's not enough to support McDonald's in the long run.
Yeah,
you know?
There's an increasing awareness about McDonald's not being the best place to feed your kids, and presumably we're moving towards a society that is a little bit more equitable in its distribution.
I blame Michelle Obama. I mean, there's another thing that Obama has ruined
Taking
in America.
over the chicken McNugget.
I mean, at this point, most people, I feel like, go to McDonald's to ask where they can find a restaurant. You know what I mean? Like, hey, where?
Do you know where I can go to get some fries around here? Okay, and then there is this. 2016 wannabe Lindsey Graham has a message for fellow conservatives if the Supreme Court doesn't rule their way on same-sex marriage. Get over it and move on.
Being for traditional marriage without animosity is where I stand. If the Supreme Court rules sometimes this year that same-sex marriage bans are unconstitutional, then that will be a defining moment in that debate, and it'll be time for us to move forward as a society.
So that's it, Jamil. If the Supreme Court makes gay marriage law of the land, everybody just needs to move on and deal with it. Just like they move on and dealt with Obamacare when John Boehner said in 2012, it's law of the land, let's move on.
This is sort of like the Texas thing. I think, America already has moved on. And I mean, it'd be nice if Lindsey Graham, it's nice that he's planning to join the 21st century if the Supreme Court tells him to. But at the same time, I mean, I feel like it's actually bad that the idea that the Supreme Court rules on something means that we should stop debating it. I mean, I don't think that's certainly the case for Citizens United. I don't think that's the case, certainly with Republicans. It hasn't been the case with Roe v. Wade. So I really don't think that, so Republicans are going to take heed.
You think feasibly we may not move on, and also maybe it's good if we don't move on?
Indeed.
Okay, I need to get to this story because I have things to say about it. Not that I didn't have things to say about the other stories. At last night's Metropolitan Museum of Art Costume Institute Gala, there was Rihanna, there was Kim Ye, there was Carrie Bradshaw, a.k.a. Sarah Jessica Parker, but there was not New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and his wife Charlene McRae. This did not go over well in some circles. The Wall Street Journal reports that the couple are largely no-shows at New York City's high-profile society affairs, which some see as a snub to the philanthropic community. Kevin, Bill de Blasio was not wearing his finest chinoiserie last night. Therefore, he is snubbing New York's elite.
First of all, isn't it sort of it's a costume type of?
Well, this one was sort of the focus was Chinese influence on fashion, Chinese design.
You know, I don't know. I feel like you get to, don't you become mayor so you can just kind of go, oh, I'm not going to that.
Yes, that's the point of being mayor.
That's the point. That's why just so we can go, you know what, I've got a lot of
I feel like this is a broader criticism, David, of Mayor de Blasio, who I think some of New York's wealthiest do not think has been sufficiently deferential enough to the top of the upper crust of New York society.
It seemed to be like a bad scene out of the last Batman movie. You know, with 1%ers, actually not 1%ers, 0.01%ers, worrying that the mayor is identifying perhaps too much with the rabble of New York City and not their own crowd. I mean, I think you should put out a statement and say, sorry, I was changing bed linen in a homeless shelter last night. Couldn't make it this year, maybe next year. See you at the shelter next week.
Kabooyaka. That's basically how you end that sentence.
Did he just weirdly call the mayor Bane? I think that's sort of what he did.
But in a different way.
In a different way.
A good Bane.
Can I just say one thing as an Asian American?
Bane was fine.
Can I just say one thing as an Asian American? There was a lot of like dressing as the Empress Dowager from 100 years ago, like headdresses, Chinese style. One of the few Asian designers, Chinese, look at that. There were not Asian people wearing crazy Empress Dowager headdresses like that. Just a memo. Maybe Chinese fashion has moved into the 21st century, and maybe next there's Vera Wang, who is not wearing a headdress at all. Okay, I have to go because we've totally run out of time. Kevin Avery, Jameel Smith, and Kevin Avery, and David Korn. Kevin Avery's in there twice. Thank you guys for your time.